Get ready, because today we're going to talk about how to build a strong and engaging cast of characters. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Bad Parts, also the author of Entry Wounds, and welcome to my writing channel. One of my subscribers requested a video on character chemistry, so today we're going to take a look at it. We'll define what character chemistry is, we'll talk about how to build a cast, and I'll give you some tips for getting the most out of your character interactions. And before we go any further, here's your spoiler warning. The ones listed in red have the heaviest spoilers. But let's start off by answering the question, what is character chemistry? And it's the relationship dynamic between two or more characters in a story. It's the energy that exists between characters when they interact with each other, and it engages the audience because it's typically a good source of conflict, intrigue, character growth, and fun. And one last thing I'll throw out there, character chemistry can involve many types of relationships. It can involve romantic partners, buddies, enemies, siblings, parent-child relationships, mentor-protege relationships, and so on. Alright, so we got that out of the way. Now let's talk about building your story's cast. And the first thing you need to do here is select your story genre and your character roles. And genre is very important here. For instance, a romantic comedy requires a certain cast of characters, while an epic fantasy story requires a completely different cast. Be aware of your story genre expectations and decide which roles your characters have to play. Every story needs a protagonist, but you may or may not need a villain, a romantic interest, a mentor, a sidekick, a comic relief character, etc. Next thing you want to do is choose your main character, their story goal, and their personality. And obviously your main character is your most important character, and you need to know who they are, what they want, and what motivates them. And once you've figured these things out, then you choose their personality. Are they quiet and reserved, or are they loud and outspoken? Are they warm and compassionate, or cold and calculating? Do they crave structure and consistency, or do they prefer variety and unpredictability? Do they have a sense of morality? Do they have a sense of humor? There are plenty of possibilities to consider when developing a character's traits and temperament, but your main character should have a well-defined personality. Once you've got that settled, you'll want to create supporting characters who differ from your protagonist. Typically, you want supporting characters who are easily distinguished from your main character. If you have a main character who's book smart, pair him with a character who's street smart. If your main character is brave and adventurous, create a supporting character who's timid and bookish. If your main character is idealistic and naive, create supporting characters who are cynical, wise, or battle-tested. And don't forget about villains. If you have a tough, silent hero like Batman, you might want to consider a theatrical and humorous villain like the Joker. But whatever direction you go in, try to create characters who have different personalities, backgrounds, and beliefs so that they can challenge each other and balance each other out. And then the last thing to remember when you're building your cast is to have characters represent different values, beliefs, and viewpoints. Typically, the characters in your story will each represent one or more values, and when characters interact, those values will come into conflict. And not only does this make for good drama, but it contributes to the overall theme, and it adds layers of meaning to your story. For example, Batman vs. the Joker is about more than just two men in costumes punching each other. It's about the battle between order, represented by Batman, and chaos, represented by the Joker. Then you have Batman vs. Scarecrow, where both sides represent fear, but Batman uses fear to intimidate criminals, whereas Scarecrow uses fear to control and destroy society. Alright, now I want to give you 5 tips for creating engaging character chemistry. And the first one is to establish opposites. We already talked about this, but it's critical that you establish your characters and their opposing personalities, traits, and values. For example, in Breaking Bad, Walt is established as book smart, reserved, and rational, whereas Jesse is street smart, impulsive, and emotional. In Groundhog Day, Phil Connors is a miserable, cynical weatherman, while his producer Rita is warm, open-minded, and idealistic. In Seinfeld, Jerry is a neat freak, a successful comedian, and he's often the voice of reason on the show. His best friend George is a stingy, jealous loser who frequently gets fired from his jobs. Then you have Elaine, who's serious about her career and her self-image, and she often loses her temper. And then Kramer, he doesn't have a job, he's very laid back, and he's a complete wild card who is sometimes a total idiot and other times a source of wisdom. Tip number 2, find the glue that unites your cast. And since your characters will be opposites, it's important to give them a legitimate reason to stick together. Reasons might include a common goal, daily obligations like work and school, might include personal history, and even the location where they're at. For instance, in Breaking Bad, Walt and Jesse both want money, respect, and success. Despite their differences, they cook and sell meth together in order to achieve their common goals. In Star Wars, the characters are glued together by a common goal of stopping the Empire. And keep in mind that although their goal is the same, their motivations differ. Luke is trying to define who he is, Han and Chewie need money, Obi-Wan feels obligated to help Leia, and Leia herself is a rebel leader who must oppose the Empire. In Alien, the characters are glued together by job-related obligations. They work as crew members on a commercial spaceship. And then in Seinfeld, the glue involves character history and location. With character history, you have Jerry and George. They've been best friends since high school. You also have Jerry and Elaine, who have been close friends ever since their breakup. And then with location, you have Jerry and Kramer. They live across the hall from each other. You also have Newman involved. Newman is Jerry's nemesis, but he's glued into the situation because he lives in the same apartment building. Tip number 3, have your characters influence each other. And going through shared experiences will allow your characters to come into conflict. They'll disagree on what to prioritize and how to solve their problems, and as characters continue to interact, they tend to rub off on one another, which allows them to change and grow. For instance, in Breaking Bad, Walt is initially reluctant to embrace his dark side, but as he and Jesse continue to cook meth, Walt grows accustomed to the life of a criminal, and he learns to enjoy his newfound sense of self-respect. Meanwhile, over time, Jesse recognizes the impact of his actions as a drug dealer, and he experiences a moral awakening, and he yearns to move on from life as a criminal. In Star Wars, Han toughens up Luke, and he challenges Leia to shed her pride. Meanwhile, both Luke and Leia challenge Han to fight for a cause greater than himself. Tip number 4, remember that though your characters may change, they are still individuals. In order for them to seem realistic, some core traits and values need to remain the same. For example, in Breaking Bad, Walt remains strategic, intelligent, and ambitious throughout the series. Jesse, meanwhile, remains emotional, needy, and loyal to those he cares about. In Star Wars, Luke stays idealistic, Obi-Wan stays devoted to the ways of the Force, Leia stays devoted to the rebellion, and Han stays daring, charismatic, and resourceful. And in the movie Training Day, rookie narcotics officer Jake Hoyt learns to grow teeth and stand up to his corrupt partner. And though Jake grows stronger, he still maintains his moral code from start to finish. And then tip number 5, use dialogue arguments to highlight clashing values. Remember when we talked about how characters represent different values and how those values will come into conflict? Well, usually your character's actions will showcase those values, but you can also use arguments to engage your audience further. Audiences love to see characters challenge each other's viewpoints and defend their own. For example, in Star Wars, there's a scene where Luke, Han, and Obi-Wan debate the power of the Force. Han dismisses it while Obi-Wan defends it, and Luke, meanwhile, is caught in the middle trying to decide what he believes.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
You don't believe in the Force, do you?
It's all a lot of simple tricks and nonsense.
I suggest you try it again, Luke. Stretch out with your feelings. You see? You can do it.
I call it luck.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
In Training Day, Jake and his corrupt partner Alonzo often debate how crime should be handled in a messy, corrupt world.
What more you want?
I want justice, right?
Is that not justice?
That's street justice.
What's wrong with street justice?
Oh, just let the animals wipe themselves out.
God willing.
And in Seinfeld, there's an iconic episode where Jerry decides he wants to get married in order to make his life meaningful. And later, Kramer shuts that idea down.
I mean, what are you thinking about, Jerry? Marriage? Family? Well, they're prisons! Man-made prisons! You're doing time!
It's sad, Jerry. It's a sad state of affairs.
I'm glad we had this talk.
Oh, you have no idea!
And one last thing I want to throw out here is nonverbal communication. Sometimes a single look or a single gesture can signal what a character values, and it can build strong chemistry within a cast. So I hope this helps. Question of the day. In your opinion, which cast of characters has the best chemistry? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of either one of my books and be sure to leave reviews on Amazon. Bad Parts is great if you like small town horror. It's about people trading away their sick and injured body parts in order to get healthy again. And then Entry Wounds is great if you like thrillers. It's about a guy who picks up a haunted gun and he can't put it down till he kills 6 people with it. Also, be sure to check out my other videos, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember to keep on writing.